The night he walked away, he didn't look back. His daughter stood at the doorway, small hands shaking, watching her father disappear into the rain. No goodbye. No explanation, just silence that lasted for 3 long years. Everyone told her to forget him, that some people don't deserve a second chance. But she carried that moment with her, every single day, letting it shape who she would become. 3 years later, the world was watching a very different kind of night. Cameras flashed, crowds held their breath, and the Met Gala glittered with power, fame, and influence. Celebrities arrived in silence and confidence, but one unexpected guest changed everything. When a young woman stepped onto the red carpet, heads turned not because of her dress alone, but because of who stood beside her. The most powerful guest of the Met Gala had arrived, and he wasn't there by accident. Somewhere in the crowd, a man froze. He recognized her instantly. The daughter he abandoned was no longer a forgotten child. She had returned stronger, calmer, and with a secret that would force him to face the past he tried to escape. As cameras closed in and whispers spread, one question hung in the air: why did she come back now? And what was she about to reveal? Before that night at the Met Gala, her life had been quiet and invisible. After her father left, she grew up learning how to survive without asking for anything. Her mother worked long hours, and the girl learned early that trust could disappear without warning. She studied harder than anyone noticed, pushing herself forward, not for revenge, but to prove she could stand on her own. Still, the question of why her father abandoned her never stopped echoing in her mind. What no one knew was that fate had been shaping her path in unexpected ways. A chance meeting years earlier had connected her to someone far beyond her world, someone whose name alone could open doors. He saw something in her that others missed: strength, patience, and a quiet fire. Under his guidance, she learned how power really worked, not through anger, but through influence and timing. He never spoke about her past, but he knew it mattered now. Walking beside him under the bright lights, she felt calm but alert. This moment wasn't about fashion or fame. It was about answers. Across the carpet, her father stood frozen, memories crashing back. He didn't understand how his forgotten daughter ended up here, or why the most powerful guest in the room had chosen to stand at her side. And as the cameras kept flashing, one truth remained hidden: this reunion was only the beginning. As the night unfolded, the red carpet buzzed with rumors. Fashion reporters whispered about the mysterious young woman and the powerful guest who arrived with her. Some said she was a rising star, others guessed she was a hidden heir. No one imagined the truth that tied her to a man standing only a few steps away, struggling to breathe as the past closed in on him. From his point of view, the Met Gala felt unreal. The music, the lights, the applause, all faded as he watched her move with quiet confidence. He remembered a little girl who waited by the door, believing he would return. Guilt crept in, heavy and unwanted. He had built a new life on success and reputation, carefully burying that chapter. Now it was standing in front of him, dressed in grace and surrounded by power. Across the room, she noticed him watching. Her heart tightened, but her face stayed calm. This wasn't the place for emotions. The powerful guest beside her leaned in slightly, reminding her without words to stay focused. Their presence alone shifted the balance of the room. Important people paid attention. Invitations followed. Doors opened. Behind the glamour, another conflict was taking shape. Old family friends began connecting dots, and questions spread through the crowd. Why had she returned now? What did she want from the man who abandoned her? And more importantly, what role did the most powerful guest at the Met Gala play in her story? As tension rose and secrets pressed closer to the surface, it became clear that this night was setting something much bigger in motion. The tension in the room grew almost unbearable as the night deepened. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing every glance, every subtle expression. The man who had abandoned his daughter tried to steady himself, but his eyes betrayed him. He couldn't look away from her, from the poise and quiet authority she now carried. Every step she took seemed calculated, every movement drawing attention not just from the press, but from him. The daughter he had forgotten had returned, and she had the power to change everything he thought he controlled. Whispers started circling through the elite crowd. Some noticed the way she walked beside the Met Gala's most powerful guest, a man whose influence could sway industries and fortunes. Others speculated about the connection between them, and even he, the man she had left behind, felt the shifting under, the silent message in the air. She was no longer the little girl who waited at the door as she approached him. The room seemed to tighten around them, her eyes locked with his, a flicker of recognition and restrained emotion passing silently between them. The powerful guest beside her gave a subtle nod, a quiet signal that tonight, nothing would be as it seemed. In that moment, every past regret, every unanswered question, and every hidden secret converged. And just as she was about to speak, the crowd hushed, sensing the storm about to break, but no one knew what words would come next, or how deep the impact would be. Just as the man braced himself for her words, a new presence cut through the crowd. A familiar face appeared, someone he thought was long gone, someone who had played a hidden role in the family's past. Gasps rippled through the room as whispers turned to murmurs of disbelief. The woman, a former family friend with secrets of her own, had arrived unexpectedly, and her expression was sharp, Almost accusing, the daughter's composure didn't falter, but her eyes flicked toward the newcomer with a hint of tension. The man who had abandoned her now realized this wasn't just a reunion. There were layers he had never anticipated. Old betrayals, hidden alliances, and untold truths were surfacing all at once. The powerful guest beside her leaned in, whispering something that made her jaw tighten. Whatever game was unfolding, it was bigger than anyone in the room had imagined. Cameras caught every glance, every stiff smile, every subtle movement. The crowd didn't yet understand the full story, but the energy shifted. What started as a confrontation between father and daughter now involved unseen players with their own agendas. And as the daughter finally opened her mouth, the man's heart sank because the words that were about to leave her lips could unravel everything he thought he had controlled. The stakes had just escalated, and no one could predict the fallout. The room went silent as she finally spoke, her voice calm but carrying the weight of years spent waiting. "You left me," she said, looking directly at him. "But I didn't wait for an apology. I waited for a purpose." The man's throat went dry, guilt and disbelief warring inside him. He had imagined countless confrontations in his mind, but none like this. Her strength, her presence, demanded more than remorse. Then, the powerful guest beside her stepped forward. "She has built something you could never imagine," he said, his voice firm. The crowd watched as the daughter revealed the truth. Over the past 3 years, she had quietly become an influential force in her own right, connected to the people and power her father had once underestimated. The Met Gala wasn't just a stage for glamour, it was the perfect moment to show that she had outgrown the child he abandoned, and now held the cards he had ignored. The man realized, painfully, that this was no reunion for forgiveness, it was a reckoning. But just as relief seemed possible, the former family friend from earlier stepped closer, whispering something to the powerful guest. The daughter's eyes widened, and the guest's expression darkened. A new secret had emerged, one that hinted her return to the Met Gala wasn't just about confronting her father, but about exposing a hidden betrayal that could shake the very foundation of the world they all thought they knew. The night ended with whispers, cameras flashing, and a truth that no one saw coming. The tension finally began to ease as the daughter took a deep breath, letting the moment settle. She turned to her father, not with anger, but with quiet confidence. "I came back not to hurt you," she said, "but to show you that leaving me didn't define me. I've built my own path, and I choose who shapes my future." The man's eyes filled with a mixture of shame and awe. He realized that the years of regret could never erase what she had become, a strong, independent woman who had turned abandonment into strength. The powerful guest smiled subtly, signaling his respect and support. The former family friend, now revealed as an unexpected ally, acknowledged the daughter's courage with a nod before fading into the crowd, leaving the past where it belonged. Cameras continued to flash, but the story had shifted. No longer was it about scandal or heartbreak, it was about resilience, determination, and reclaiming power over one's life. As the night wound down, the daughter stood tall, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could lead to growth and triumph. Her father, humbled and changed, understood that some lessons could only be learned through absence and return. And while the Met Gala had been a stage of glitter and fame, it had also become a stage for redemption, revelation, and the unshakable strength of a daughter who refused to be forgotten.